I'll give you a lift back to the mall. If something should happen to me, put on my suit. The reindeer will know what to do.
The Santa Claus wasn't just a Christmas movie. It was a costume that weighed 70 pounds, a script rewritten on set, and a franchise nobody saw coming. The lead almost went to someone else. One scene terrified test audiences, and the suit sent Tim Allen to the hospital. These are 20 weird facts about the Santa Claus. This sleigh ride gets bumpy. Number 20, the role, almost went to Bill Murray.
Every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I am an immortal.
Hey, you!
What's that? Whoa, whoa!
Before Tim Allen put on the red suit, Disney had a very different Santa in mind, Bill Murray. Fresh off Groundhog Day, Murray was the studio's first choice to play Scott Calvin, the cynical divorced dad who accidentally calls Santa and inherits the job. They loved his deadpan delivery, his ability to play grumpy with heart, that signature Murray smirk that could turn sarcasm into something almost sweet. The studio saw him as perfect, a comedian who could sell disbelief and wonder in the same breath. Murray read the script, thought about it for weeks, then quietly passed. He never gave a formal reason publicly, but those close to the production said he didn't want to be locked into a family franchise. Murray was notorious for avoiding sequels, for keeping his options open, bouncing between projects on his own terms. And the Santa Claus felt like a commitment, like signing up for years of red velvet and ho-ho-hos. So Disney pivoted, fast. Tim Allen was just breaking out on Home Improvement, a rising star with sharp comedy timing and a face audiences trusted. He hadn't done film yet, but the studio took the gamble, and within days of casting him, they realized they'd found something Murray couldn't have given them: warmth. Murray would have played Scott Calvin with detached irony, a man watching his own life from the outside. Allen played him like a real dad, flawed, frustrated, but trying. The choice changed everything, and Christmas movies were never the same. Number 19, the suit sent Tim Allen to the hospital.
Well, how do I look? Nice?
You've got sash.
You're right. This...
I am drained emotionally. You have another one? I don't know.
That Santa suit looked cozy on screen. Off screen, it was torture. The full costume weighed over 70 pounds. Layers of padding, velvet, fur trim, leather boots, and a belt loaded with props. Add in the wig, the beard, and the hat, and Tim Allen was buried under a mountain of fabric that trapped heat like an oven. The shoot took place in the middle of summer in Toronto. Studio lights blazing at full intensity. No air conditioning inside the suit. Temperatures on set climbing past 90 degrees. Within hours of the first full costume test, Allen was drenched in sweat, dizzy, struggling to catch his breath. During one particularly long scene at the North Pole workshop, he collapsed. Crew members rushed over, pulled off the beard, frantically poured water on him, while others called for medics. He was severely dehydrated, overheated, teetering on the edge of dangerous heat exhaustion. Paramedics checked his vitals, took his blood pressure, made him sit in the shade with ice packs for over an hour. Production shut down for the rest of the day. After that incident, the costume department scrambled to retrofit the suit with hidden cooling packs sewn into the lining and scheduled mandatory breaks every 30 minutes. But Allen still suffered through every shoot. He later joked in interviews that playing Santa Claus almost cold him, that he lost 15 pounds during filming just from sweating. And for a movie about Christmas magic and joy, that suit was anything but magical behind the scenes. It was a wearable sauna that turned every take into an endurance test. Number 18. The opening scene was rewritten the night before.
What's that? Whoa, whoa!
This guy was huge.
Yeah, well, I'm Santa now,
You
okay?
don't look like Santa.
You killed him.
Did not.
The Santa Claus begins with a moment that sets the entire story in motion. Santa falls off a roof, dies, and Scott Calvin has to take his place. Simple, clean, almost gentle, but it wasn't always that way. The original opening was much darker, almost disturbing. Santa didn't just slip and fall. He had a full-blown heart attack mid-chimney, clutched his chest, collapsed in front of a terrified child watching from below, and died gasping for air on the roof. Test audiences were horrified. Parents walked out of early screenings. Kids started crying in their seats, asking their mothers if Santa was really dead. Disney panicked hard. They had a Christmas movie, a family film, that opened with genuine trauma and death. Marketing executives knew this would call the box office before it even started. So the night before emergency reshoots, director John Pasquin, Tim Allen, and the screenwriters locked themselves in a Toronto hotel room and completely rewrote the entire sequence from scratch. They softened everything, made it ambiguous, almost dreamlike. Santa startles from Scott's voice, loses his footing, waves his arms, and disappears into the snow below. No choking sounds, no suffering, no visible body, just magic and mystery and a red suit left behind. The new version was filmed in a single rush day, cut into editing at the last possible minute, and slipped into theaters just in time for release. What could have been a PR disaster became one of the most iconic, gentle openings in Christmas film history, all because someone had the courage to admit it wasn't working and start completely over. Number 17. Judge Reinhold was hired to balance Tim Allen's chaos. Scott Calvin needed a foil, someone stable, annoying, painfully normal to play against. Enter Neil Miller, the well-meaning but insufferable stepfather, played by Judge Reinhold. But Reinhold wasn't the first choice, not even close. The role was originally offered to a more traditionally comedic actor, someone who could match Tim Allen's manic energy beat for beat, trade punchlines, and escalate the chaos. But director John Pasquin had a completely different vision. He didn't want Neil to be funny in the obvious way. He wanted him to be real, grounded, almost boringly sincere. So, he cast Reinhold, an actor best known for playing straight men in comedies like Beverly Hills, Cop and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Reinhold brought something unexpected to the role: restraint, emotional honesty. While Allen bounced off walls, improvised wildly, and played Scott like a man barely holding it together, Reinhold stayed calm, delivering every line with genuine concern and earnest confusion. He made Neil likable even when the script desperately wanted you to hate him, to see him as the obstacle. And that tension, that clash between Scott's spiraling chaos and Neil's rigid control, became the secret emotional backbone of the entire film. Reinhold later said he played Neil like a man genuinely trying his absolute best in an impossible situation, a stepdad who loved his stepson and just wanted stability. And somehow, that made him more human, more relatable than the guy in the magic suit. The chemistry worked perfectly because they weren't trying to out-funny each other. They were just two dads, both lost in the absolute madness of Christmas. Number 16. The elves were played by adults, not children.
Okay, look. The Santa Claus. And putting on the suit and entering the sleigh, the wearer waives any and all rights to any previous
workshop now. Elves are laughing, hear the sound. Snow is falling all around. Joyful.
Those cheerful workshop elves looked like kids, but they weren't. Almost every elf in the Santa Claus was played by an adult actor with dwarfism or smaller stature. Disney made the choice early in pre-production, knowing that child labor laws would severely limit shooting hours and complicate the already tight schedule. Child actors could only work a few hours per day, required on-set tutors, and needed constant supervision. Adult actors could work longer days, nail complex choreography without breaking concentration, and bring professionalism to a set that was already chaotic with reindeer, snow machines, and complicated lighting rigs. It was a practical decision, but it paid off in unexpected ways. The elf performances feel polished, confident, almost otherworldly. They're not just cute background characters, they're skilled performers, moving through scenes with precision and energy that child actors might have struggled to sustain over months of filming. One of the standout elves, Bernard, played by David Krumholtz, became an instant fan favorite. His dry delivery and quiet authority gave the North Pole a sense of history and order. He wasn't comic relief, he was the backbone, the one holding everything together, and audiences connected with him instantly. Krumholtz was only 16 during filming, but he carried himself like someone who'd been running Santa's operation for centuries. The decision to cast adults wasn't just about logistics or schedules. It gave the North Pole weight, made it feel real, turned what could have been forgettable background characters into icons. Bernard didn't just help Santa, he stole scenes, became a meme, and launched Krumholtz into a career that's still going strong decades later. Number 15. Eric Lloyd didn't know. He was in a Christmas classic.
I'm okay.
He turns into jello and the fireplace kind of appears and he goes through it like this.
Charlie Calvin, the son who believes in Santa when no one else will, was played by 8-year-old Eric Lloyd. Sweet kid, perfect. Casting absolutely nailed the role. But here's the thing. He didn't fully understand what kind of movie he was making. Lloyd later admitted in interviews that during filming, he genuinely thought he was just in a regular family comedy. He knew his character's dad had become Santa Claus, but the Christmas magic, the workshop, the flying reindeer, all of it felt like pretending to him. Just another day on a soundstage with fake snow, bright lights, and adults in costumes telling him where to stand. It wasn't until he saw the finished film in a packed theater, surrounded by other kids gasping and cheering and pointing at the screen, that he realized what they'd actually made together. He watched himself on screen and thought, "Oh, this is special. This is something people will remember." The innocence in his performance came directly from not overthinking it. He wasn't trying to sell Christmas magic or manipulate emotions. He was just a kid reacting honestly to a weird dad in a progressively weirder red suit. And that honesty, that lack of artifice, made Charlie one of the most believable child characters in any holiday film. Sometimes the best performances come from not knowing you're in a classic, from just showing up and being real. Lloyd brought no agenda, no actor tricks, just pure reaction. And 30 years later, that's exactly why Charlie still feels like a real kid and not a Hollywood creation. Number 14. The reindeer were completely uncontrollable.
Are you growling at me? Look, Comet, like I said.
Hey, does this look like home to you guys? No. Hey.
Santa's sleigh is pulled by 8 majestic reindeer. On screen, they're magical, obedient, perfectly in sync. Behind the scenes, absolute chaos. The production used real reindeer for close-up shots, and they were a legitimate nightmare. Reindeer are not domesticated animals like horses or dogs. They don't take direction. They don't care about your shooting schedule or your million-dollar set. They're wild creatures barely tolerating human presence. During one scene where Scott is supposed to approach the sleigh for the first time, the reindeer completely panicked. One bolted suddenly, nearly taking out a camera operator who had to dive out of the way. Another kicked backwards violently, splintering part of the expensive wooden sleigh prop into pieces. A third started bucking, thrashing against its harness. Tim Allen froze mid-scene, unsure whether to stay in character or run for safety. The animal handlers rushed in immediately, calmed the animals down with food and gentle voices, and reset the entire scene from scratch. But from that point forward, the crew treated every single reindeer shot like a live stunt sequence. Safety protocols, distance markers, wranglers on standby, with sedatives just in case. Most of the flying sequences were done with animatronics and CGI composites, but those few real reindeer shots were earned through sweat, fear, and a lot of panicked yelling. Disney wanted authenticity, wanted real animals to sell the magic, and they got it. Along with hoofprints in places they definitely shouldn't have been, damaged equipment, and a production insurance claim that made executives wince. Number 13. Disney didn't believe it would be a hit. The Santa Claus wasn't positioned as a major tentpole release. Disney slotted it for early November 1994, a soft opening with modest expectations and minimal fanfare. They didn't pour significant money into marketing, no huge advertising campaigns, no primetime television spots during must-see TV, no celebrity press junkets. Internally, studio executives saw it as a mid-tier family film, something that would play okay during the holidays, make back its budget, and fade quietly after New Year's. They were spectacularly wrong. The word of mouth was instant and powerful. Parents took their kids to the opening weekend. Those kids dragged their friends the next weekend. Repeat viewings packed theaters weekend after weekend. By December, it was the #1 movie in America. It stayed in the top 5 for weeks, playing through Christmas and beyond, eventually grossing over $190 million worldwide on a budget of just $22 million. Disney was genuinely stunned. They hadn't seen it coming at all. A movie they barely promoted, barely believed in, had become a massive cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, executives started making phone calls about sequels, merchandise lines, theme park tie-ins, home video releases. But in those early weeks, before the box office exploded into something undeniable, the studio had no idea they were sitting on a goldmine. The Santa Claus didn't win because of marketing muscle or star power. It won because it told a story people desperately wanted to believe in, and sometimes that's all it takes to create magic. Number 12. The seeing isn't believing line was improvised.
This is too much.
Listen to me. Come on, listen. There's a lot.
How does Santa visit those people?
He turns into jello and the fireplace kind of appears and he goes through.
One of the most quoted moments in the Santa Claus comes near the end. Charlie looks at his dad, now fully transformed into Santa, and delivers a line that cuts straight to the heart of the entire film. But here's the secret nobody talks about. It wasn't in the original script. During a late-night shoot, director John Pasquin was setting up an emotional scene between Scott and Charlie. The scripted dialogue felt flat, too expository, missing the emotional punch they desperately needed for the climax. Tim Allen and Eric Lloyd were standing on set, waiting for notes and adjustments, when Lloyd quietly said something to Allen between takes. Just casual conversation, kid to adult. Pasquin overheard it from across the set, walked over quickly and asked Lloyd to repeat exactly what he'd just said. Lloyd shrugged and said it again, slightly differently, not understanding why it mattered. Pasquin looked at Allen, then at the script supervisor. He made an immediate call. Forget the scripted line entirely. Use what the kid just said naturally. They rolled cameras. Lloyd delivered it naturally, sincerely, without the crushing weight of knowing it would become iconic, quoted on Christmas cards and in holiday specials for decades. The line stayed in the final cut, completely untouched. No ADR, no polish. And 30 years later, fans still repeat it, misquote it, get it tattooed on their arms. All because an 8-year-old boy improvised his way into Christmas movie history without even trying. Number 11. One scene almost gave the film a PG-13 rating.
I don't know. I think it's the North Pole.
That's the North Pole? Hey, buddy, we need to...
The Santa Claus is a family movie, rated PG, safe for kids, grandparents, everyone. But one scene almost destroyed that rating completely. In an early cut, there's a moment at the North Pole where Scott Calvin is being processed by the elves. They strip him down, measure him, prepare him for transformation into Santa. In the original version, the scene went much, much further. Scott was shown completely nude from behind. A full rear shot held for several seconds and played for awkward comedy. The elves made jokes about his body. The camera lingered uncomfortably. Test audiences laughed nervously, but parents absolutely didn't. They shifted in their seats, covered kids' eyes, and walked out to complain to theater managers. The MPAA flagged it immediately and harshly. They told Disney in no uncertain terms that the scene pushed the film firmly into PG-13 territory, possibly even R if they included any frontal implications. For a Christmas movie aimed squarely at families with young children, that rating would have been a complete death sentence at the box office. Disney executives panicked and pulled the scene entirely. They re-edited it, softened all the angles, used strategic props and elves to block views. What you see in the final cut is much tamer, almost innocent. Scott in his boxers, quick cuts, implied nudity that's more silly than shocking. The joke still lands without crossing any lines. The full Endy version was never publicly released, locked forever in a vault somewhere deep in Disney's archives. And the film kept its PG rating by the thinnest possible thread. Number 10. The North Pole set cost more than the entire script budget.
You kids have presents on your mind. What
When production designer Carol Spear started sketching the North Pole, she didn't think small. She wanted something massive, intricate, believable, a working factory that felt lived in, magical and real all at once. What she created was staggering. The North Pole Workshop set took up an entire soundstage, the largest in Toronto. Over 200 feet long, filled with hand-carved toys, functioning conveyor belts, massive Christmas trees, thousands of twinkling lights, and intricate Victorian-style architecture painted in reds, greens, and golds. Every inch was detailed, from the tools on workbenches to the snow dusting on railings. It was a fully realized world, and it was incredibly expensive. The set alone cost over $3 million to build, more than the entire screenplay budget and a significant chunk of the film's $22 million total. But Disney didn't blink. They knew the North Pole had to feel real, or the entire movie would collapse. If audiences didn't believe in that world, they wouldn't believe Scott Calvin became Santa. So they spent the money, trusted the designers, and built something that still looks practical and magical 30 years later. No green screen, no digital extensions, just pure craftsmanship. When Tim Allen walked onto that set for the first time, he stopped, looked around, and actually teared up. He later said it felt like stepping into childhood, into belief itself. And that's exactly what Disney paid for. Number 9, Tim Allen rewrote his courtroom speech in the morning.
Name? Santa Claus. Name? Père Noël. Babo Natale.
Santa, are you all right? Santa?
It'll be okay, kids.
Let him go! Let Santa go!
The courtroom scene is the emotional climax of the Santa Claus. Scott Calvin, desperate to see his son, has to convince a judge he's not insane while literally transforming into Santa Claus. It's vulnerable, raw, and perfectly delivered. But the speech that made audiences cry wasn't what the writers originally penned. Tim Allen hated the scripted version. He thought it was too polished, too neat, not honest enough for a man losing everything. So, the morning of shooting, he locked himself in his trailer with a legal pad and rewrote the entire speech from scratch. He didn't ask permission, he just did it. When he walked onto set, director John Pasquin asked if he was ready. Allen handed him the crumpled pages and said, "This is what Scott would actually say." Pasquin read it quickly, looked up, and nodded. They rolled cameras with Allen's version. No rehearsal, no safety take with the original script. Just raw, rewritten emotion delivered in one take. Allen's version was messier, more desperate, more real. He stammered, paused, searched for words like a man genuinely drowning, and it worked beautifully. The scene became one of the most quoted moments in the film, a turning point where comedy shifts into something deeper. Allen later said he rewrote it because Scott Calvin wasn't a hero or a saint. He was just a dad trying not to lose his kid. And that truth, that desperation, it couldn't come from a polished Hollywood script. It had to come from somewhere honest. Number 8. The fake snow caused respiratory problems.
Hey, you! What's that? Whoa, whoa!
You have got to be kidding. Come on, look at the size of this thing.
Movie Snow looks magical on camera. Behind the scenes, it was a health hazard. The Santa Claus used thousands of pounds of artificial snow throughout production. Not the soap flake kind from old Hollywood, but a newer chemical compound made from shredded plastic and fire-retardant materials. It looked perfect, stuck to everything, and photographed beautifully under lights. It also filled the air with fine particles that didn't settle. Within weeks of shooting, crew members started developing respiratory issues. Persistent coughs, burning throats, difficulty breathing. Some developed full sinus infections. Tim Allen, already struggling under the heavy costume, found himself wheezing between takes. The snow clung to the inside of his beard, got into his nose and mouth, irritated his lungs every time he took a deep breath. Production brought in air quality specialists who tested the sound stages and found dangerously high levels of particulate matter floating in the air. They installed industrial ventilation systems, required crew members to wear masks between takes, and limited how much snow could be actively used in any single scene. But the damage was already done. Several crew members needed medical treatment. Alan required an inhaler for weeks after filming Wrapped. The snow looked gorgeous on screen, creating that perfect winter wonderland atmosphere. But it came at a real cost to the people breathing it in day after day. It's one of those invisible prices paid for movie magic that audiences never see or think about. Number 7. Wendy Crewson was cast because she could cry on command.
Mission to tell Charlie there's no Santa Claus. I think if we're going to destroy our son's illusions, I should be a part of it.
Yeah, but you're never around, are you, Scott?
Laura, what do you think? Christmas Eve, you guys spend with Charlie?
Oh my God.
Laura Miller, Scott's ex-wife, needed to be more than just the obstacle. She needed depth, real emotion, someone who genuinely loved her son and was terrified watching her ex-husband lose his mind. Wendy Crewson auditioned against dozens of actresses, all talented, all capable. But she had one skill that sealed the role instantly. She could cry on command, real tears, no glycerin drops, no tricks. During her audition, director John Pasquin asked her to do a scene where Laura realizes Scott might actually be telling the truth about becoming Santa. Crewson read the lines once through normally, then Pasquin said, "Now do it again, but this time, I need to see you break." Without hesitation, without preparation, Crewson's eyes filled with tears. They spilled down her cheeks as she delivered the same lines with completely different emotion. The casting directors looked at each other. Pasquin said, "That's it, she's Laura." Crewson brought an unexpected vulnerability to a character that could have been one-dimensional. She made Laura sympathetic even when she was fighting against Scott, even when she was signing custody papers and calling psychiatrists. You understood her fear, you felt her conflict, and in the final scenes when she has to let Charlie go, when she has to believe in something impossible, Crewson's performance elevates the entire film. Those tears weren't manufactured in editing or enhanced with music. They were real, immediate, and heartbreaking. Sometimes casting comes down to one moment, one skill that proves someone understands the assignment completely. Number 6. The Flying Sleigh. Sequence almost called a stuntman. The moment when Scott Calvin first takes off in Santa's sleigh looks seamless, magical, like he's actually flying over rooftops into the stars. But that sequence was one of the most dangerous stunts in the entire production. They used a combination of wire work, crane shots, and a specially built mechanical sleigh suspended 40 feet in the air. The stunt coordinator assured everyone it was safe, tested, and foolproof. It wasn't. During one take, the primary cable supporting the sleigh suddenly snapped. The backup cable caught it, but the violent jerk sent the stunt double, who was strapped in, wearing Tim Allen's costume, swinging wildly through the air. He slammed into a lighting rig, barely missing a metal beam that would have cooled him instantly. The entire crew froze in horror. They lowered the sleigh immediately. The stunt double was shaken, bruised, but miraculously uninjured. Production shut down for 2 days while engineers inspected every cable, every bolt, every safety mechanism. They discovered the cable had a manufacturing defect, a weak point that should have been caught in testing, but wasn't. When they resumed filming, Tim Allen himself refused to get in the sleigh for the remaining shots. They used wider angles, tighter editing, and more obvious stunt doubles to finish the sequence. Allen later said he had nightmares about that moment for months, and kept imagining what would have happened if the backup cable had also failed. Movie magic has a dark side. Sometimes it's held together by cables that shouldn't break but do. Number 5. The sequel was written before the first movie. Even premiered.
This is the best night of my life! Mine too, except for less pervy reasons.
Gal, did you remember?
Do it again, Dad.
I can't, the thing's empty.
Disney was so nervous about the Santa Claus that they did something unusual. They hedged their bets. Before the film even hit theaters, before they knew if it would succeed or fail spectacularly, they quietly commissioned a sequel script. Not a full green light, not a production commitment, just a safety net. If the movie bombed, they'd bury the script and move on. If it somehow connected, they'd already have a head start. The writer, hired under a strict non-disclosure agreement, started working on what would eventually become the Santa Claus 2, while test audiences were still watching the first film. He had no idea how it would be received, no idea if people would even care about these characters. When the box office numbers started rolling in, when the film became an undeniable hit, Disney pulled that script out of the drawer and fast-tracked development. But here's the strange part. That original sequel script was completely different from what eventually got made. Darker, stranger, more ambitious. It involved Scott Calvin losing his powers, another Santa taking over, and a corporate conspiracy at the North Pole. Test audiences hated it. Too cynical, too complicated, not magical enough. So they threw it out and started over. But the fact that it existed at all, written in advance, proved Disney had learned something. In Hollywood, you don't wait for success. You plan for it, even when you don't believe it's coming. Number 4. David Krumholtz's Bernard wig was made from real human hair.
I'm Bernard. Nice to meet you, Santa.
I'm not Santa. I've had a rough night. There's been dogs barking, guns going off.
Bernard the head elf became an unexpected breakout character. His long dark hair, mysterious vibe, and deadpan delivery made him instantly memorable. But that iconic hair wasn't a simple costume shop purchase. It was a custom-made wig constructed entirely from real human hair, hand-tied strand by strand onto a lace. Foundation. The process took over 3 months and cost nearly $12,000, an astronomical amount for a supporting character's wig. But the filmmakers knew Bernard needed to look ageless, otherworldly, not like a kid in a cheap Halloween costume. David Krumholtz wore that wig for 12 to 14 hours a day during shooting. It was hot, itchy, and glued so tightly to his forehead that it left the marks on his skin every single day. The adhesive gave him rashes. The weight gave him headaches. Between takes, crew members would spray cooling mist under the wig to give him relief, but it barely helped. Krumholtz later admitted he dreaded putting it on every morning, that he'd stare at himself in the mirror, wondering if this character was worth the physical discomfort. But he never complained on set, never asked for accommodations. He knew Bernard was special and could feel it in how people reacted when he delivered his lines, and he was right. Bernard became so popular that fans started showing up to conventions dressed as him, wig and all. Disney received thousands of letters asking for more Bernard scenes, more backstory, more screen time in the sequels, all because of a $12,000 wig made from real human hair that made one teenage actor miserable but turned a minor character into a legend. Number 3. The film's original ending was much darker.
Mate, is this some kind of trick?
Well, maybe the real God uses tricks. Maybe he's not omnipotent. He's just been around so long, he knows everything.
Oh, okay. Well,
The Santa Claus ends on a warm, magical note. Scott embraces his destiny, Charlie gets his dad back, and Christmas is saved. But that wasn't always the plan. The original ending, written into early drafts and actually filmed, was significantly darker and more ambiguous. In that version, Scott fully transforms into Santa and flies away with Charlie on Christmas Eve. But he doesn't return. The final scene showed Laura and Neil standing outside their house on Christmas morning, staring at the empty sky, realizing Scott and Charlie were gone forever. Not dead, but lost to the North Pole, claimed by the magic, never coming back to their old lives. Laura breaks down crying. Neil tries to comfort her. The camera pulls back, showing their empty, sad house, while magical sleigh bells echo faintly in the distance. Test audiences absolutely hated it. Parents walked out furious. Kids were traumatized. Comment cards used words like depressing, upsetting, wrong. Disney executives watched the numbers and made a swift decision. Reshoot the ending immediately. Make it hopeful. They brought the cast back for 2 days of additional photography, crafted the version where Scott returns as Santa, where there's joy and reunion and Christmas magic that doesn't require permanent sacrifice. The dark ending was cut entirely, never released, locked away in the Disney vault. But crew members who saw both versions still debate which one was more honest, more true to the film's deeper themes about transformation and loss. Sometimes the darker truth gets buried under Christmas lights because audiences want comfort, not questions. Number 2. Tim Allen-based Scott Calvin, on his own father.
Neil doesn't believe in Santa.
Well, Neil's head comes to a point.
He's smart. He's a doctor.
He's not a doctor, he's a...
Scott Calvin feels real because he was real. Tim Allen didn't create the character from scratch or base him on other movie dads. He based him on his own father, a man he lost when he was just 11 years old. Allen's father died in a car accident, suddenly, without warning, leaving behind a family that had to figure out how to move forward. In interviews, Allen rarely discussed this connection, but people close to the production said it was obvious on set. The way Scott struggles to connect with Charlie, the way he's awkward and trying too hard, the way he's terrified of failing as a father. All of it came from Allen's own fears and memories. He poured his grief, his regrets, his desperate wish to have had more time with his dad into every scene. Watch the courtroom speech again, knowing this context, and it hits completely differently. When Scott says he just wants to be a good father, when his voice cracks with desperation, that's not acting. That's real pain bleeding through the performance. Allen later said the movie became unexpectedly therapeutic, that playing a dad trying desperately not to lose his son helped him process losing his own father decades earlier. The magic and comedy were Disney's, but the emotional core, the beating heart of the film, was pure Tim Allen working through something deeply personal. It's why the movie resonates beyond the jokes and special effects. Because underneath the Santa suit was a son who never got to say goodbye, finally getting the chance to be the father he wished he'd had more time with. Number 1, the production was shut down by a real blizzard. The Santa Claus was filmed in Toronto during an unusually mild winter. No snow on the ground, temperatures hovering above freezing, perfect weather for a city, but terrible for a Christmas movie. The crew was trucking in thousands of pounds of fake snow daily, blowing it around sets, carefully arranging it for continuity. It was expensive, time-consuming, and looked decent, but not quite real. Then, 3 weeks into production, the weather forecast changed. A massive blizzard was heading straight for Toronto. The production team panicked. They'd lose shooting days, fall behind schedule, blow the budget. But director John Pasquin saw an opportunity. He called the crew together and made a wild decision. They were going to shoot in the real blizzard, no matter how dangerous or difficult. When the storm hit, it was chaos. Whiteout conditions, winds howling at 40 miles per hour, temperatures plummeting to 5 degrees below zero. But the cameras kept rolling. Some of the most iconic exterior shots in the film, Scott trudging through snow, the neighborhood blanketed in white, the magical Christmas atmosphere, those were captured during that real blizzard. Tim Allen was freezing, shivering uncontrollably between takes despite the heavy costume. Crew members huddled around portable heaters. Equipment kept malfunctioning, but what they captured was pure magic, authentic winter beauty that no amount of fake snow could replicate. The blizzard shut down most of Toronto for 2 days, but it gave the Santa Claus something priceless. Real Christmas magic, real snow falling from real clouds, turning a manufactured movie set into something that felt genuinely enchanted. Sometimes nature knows better than Hollywood what a Christmas movie really needs. The Santa Claus didn't follow the formula. It took risks, survived disasters, and turned a summer shoot into Christmas magic. If these secrets made you see the film differently, hit like, smash subscribe, and tell us in the comments which fact shocked you most. Because sometimes the best Christmas magic happens behind the scenes.